Hi class, my name is Katherine Carson, and I'm going to spend a few moments with you overviewing a theory found in the discipline of communication. You and I both know communication is vast and wide, and the study is as well, and it includes so many things, not only the interaction verbally, but also nonverbal communication, the day-to-day interactions, and how we grow and function in social settings, even building social skills and competencies with one another. So communication is really what we use to manage our relationships with one another. Bill Gates is known for writing an article he called Content is King, and I'm going to use that play on words this morning, and I'm going to argue for us to consider context is king. More specifically, I'd like to show how context plays a major role in how we come to understand and manage our meanings with others in our communication together. I'll use the premise of context being king as I try to overview a more specific theory under communication, and this theory is called the Coordinated Management of Meaning. I'm going to refer to that as CMM. So you may be asking yourself, well, what is CMM? So, in layman's terms, let me try to explain. CMM is simply the process by which there is a mutual understanding or a comprehension about the meanings of things in the conversation. This understanding is coordinated together, so it's often what we call co-produced or co-constructed by each person, usually two people or a dyadic between two people in the interaction, and it's often dependent on various contexts at play. So as a lighthearted illustration, let's take a quick peek at this commercial that I think is a clever way to explain communication.
The Chevy Cruze Eco gets up to 42 miles per gallon.
What? Sam, get your ears cleaned out.
What did he say?
42 wild Italians.
Huh?
It's a cruise for plus-size individuals.
It's a commercial, that's all.
I'm pretty sure he said the Chevy Cruze Eco.
A commercial for Eagle?
Eagles. No, Eco.
It's the Chevy Cruze Eco gets up to 42 miles per gallon.
Who asked you?
Amazingly fuel-efficient Chevy Cruze Eco.
Italiano, Stalliano.
There was obviously more going on in this example than merely an uncoordination of meaning. Perhaps these senior citizens needed to turn up their hearing aids, but nevertheless you can see that we don't all share the same meanings of things or the understandings of things, and you can see how this can cause miscommunications and problems. Communication scholars, Peirce, Cronin, and colleagues are the ones who are credited with the CMM theory, and they suggest that it's through communication that meanings are assigned to words or messages, and meanings are assigned to behaviors. These meanings help us to make sense of the world. So CMM theory suggests that we use specific rules to coordinate what things mean. So I'm going to overview these rules briefly and just understand that under CMM theory, these two rules are known as constitutive and regulative. So first of all, constitutive rules. Constitutive rules are known as rules of meaning, okay? And so let me give you an example of what a rule of meaning would be. Take, for example, the way I'm dressed for this presentation. So I want the meaning and the understanding to be that I'm taken seriously, or that I have researched this information and I am trusted to be able to tell you about this information with a level of knowledge that can be believable. So in the context of this assignment that I've been given, there is a rule of appropriately dressing for the occasion. So I would refrain from wearing my pajamas and a robe in here, although that would be much more comfortable than my heels. This would turn the emphasis and the coordination to professionalism, and so that is the underlying meaning. So it's the rule to the meaning. Also in CMM, there are regulative rules. Now, regulative rules can be thought of rules of action. And when you think of action, you think of doing something. You think of a behavior. And so you can think of regulative rules as regulating a behavior. So think of that as how we respond or how we behave. So these are behaviors that are logical, highly logical, and oftentimes they are contextually appropriate. So, for example, you would respect the person speaking in a company meeting by following the regulative rule of listening. Really quickly, I'd like to overview two empirical studies, and these are hands-on studies that are observable, and they give us a insight into how CMM really works among people. So, two groups of communication scholars did these studies. I'm going to start off with the first group of communication scholars who studied people from Cupertino, California. These communication scholars called themselves the Public Dialogue Consortium or Consortium, and I'm just going to call them the PDC. So the PDC set out with the goal of studying CMM by improving public communication at these town hall meetings in Cupertino, California. So the residents in this area were dealing with conflicts surrounding ethnic diversity during their city town hall meetings. And the PDC decided to come in and focus on CMM by moving and shaping conversations and managing conversations by asking questions, by offering criticisms, and helping to move the meaning of the conversation toward resolution. Resolution was their goal. So these meanings were easily co-constructed, and the group started to get somewhere together in the conversation as they had this common goal of resolution. The next study was with a group of residents from the Mariana Islands, the Northern Mariana Islands. This was an area that had consistently had a distinct cultural subgroup with a growing problem of childhood obesity, and culture seemed to play a significant part in the construction of messages regarding the way these children were being fed. It was proven that culture played a major role in the dietary habits of this particular area, the residents of this area. And this proved through CMM that individuals negotiated nutritional messages within the context of different message sources. These were culturally passed down from generation to generation. They were sociocultural. They were also familial or from a family. And often relational contexts. And so if there was a nutritional authority on something, oftentimes, say a doctor or a nurse, that could also be these messages, how they were taken and proven. One specific strength of CMM theory is that it takes into account so much of the context. So many theories are very specific. This is a big theory, and it takes into account meanings and actions at play under the umbrella of a bigger context. We can think of sociocultural context, as we've already looked at with the Northern Mariana Islands, ethnic, relational. These are big things that help us shape our conversations with one another. So in the context of my relationship with my husband, those meanings that we have might be quite different than the context of my relationship with a coworker. As a potential weakness of CMM, there appears to be an unequal distribution of power or privilege among those in a conversation or interaction. So, for example, if I were having a conversation with, say, my CEO, and he shared with me a meaning of something, I might take that meaning more seriously because of his power and his influence than, say, I would someone I had a conversation with passing in the hallway or at the water cooler. So it's possible that power may influence the meaning of things a little bit more. And so this is a weakness of CMM, a part of CMM that is not talked about in this theory. In closing, let me make a quick argument for CMM context and gospel interactions. You know, CMM and co-constructed meanings are so important. It's so important for us to understand context and where people are coming from when we share the gospel with them. If we have a better understanding of that, we have a better way of presenting the gospel to them. And ultimately, this will help them to have a better understanding and meaning of who the one true God is. Thank you guys for letting me take this time. I hope that this was meaningful, and I love to read your feedback, so please let me know how I can improve.